everyone. I'm Jason Schwartz, your host here at the Neutral Zone. We say we're anything but neutral, but we have all kinds of guests, and today we have an extremely special guest. Today I have Angela Walker, who is the vice presidential candidate for the vice president of the United States from the Green Party, which I hold very dear to my heart because that's where I ran, was Green. Aloha, Angela. Welcome to our show.
Aloha, and thank you for having me. I'm going to turn this light
sure,
on so it's a little less dark in here.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Now, to run for vice president of the United States is a big role. I'm sure the old expression is someone asked you and you said, sure, I would be happy to accept. How did you happen upon this role? What was your background that put you in the position to be even asked about such a thing?
It's been a journey. I initially ran for office as an independent socialist in my hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, back in 2014 against former Sheriff David Clark, who, most people who know him as the cowboy hat wearing Fox News pundit. Doesn't like, yeah, you know who I'm talking about, that guy. And I ran against him as an independent socialist. We took 20% of the vote in that election, which was shocking on a few different levels. And because I ran as an independent socialist and scored, from what I understand, received the highest amount of votes for any third-party candidate that year, it got the attention of the Socialist Party of the USA. And in 2016, my friend who joined the Ancestors not too long ago, Emilio Mimi Soltysik, one of the best people I've ever met, asked if I'd be his running mate for vice president in 2016. And so I ran with him then. And in 2014, we talked about building a red-green alliance. I've known, Howie is not a stranger to me. So, I had known Howie Hawkins since 2014, discussions and panels, and, we had talked about a red-green alliance. And so here in 2020, to have been asked to be his running mate and also have the endorsement and support of the Socialist Party of the USA and bring that red-green alliance into being is pretty amazing.
Red-green, I've never heard it put that way. But the Socialist Party is considered red, meaning more toward a red kind of philosophy. Is that what it means?
No, it's just the socialist, that's our color.
Okay. What do you see in this election year as, I want to say, your position in this race? We have an unusual election in that I've never seen Republicans scrambling like they have and trying to figure out what their values are, trying to be there while they have a president, let's not get too personal, who is an absolute difficult soul. And he's running against Joe Biden, who might not have been the best candidate by many people's standards, but there was a rallying around someone that they thought might be able to get this Trump guy out of there. And now, in this election, the Green Party and your role is kind of interesting because the Greens and the socialists as well, alternative views have a real important part in the dialogue. But I wondered how you're perceiving the important things that you can contribute in this kind of a race and time. I don't know if that's a good question. Sort of giving you a chance to explain where your passions are in this race and in our times that we're in.
It's actually an excellent question. We are at the intersection of a rebellion, a pandemic, a global pandemic, and economic fallout that no one could have foreseen 5 years ago. And so I think that because I've been calling this the year of impossible things, because it has been so unprecedented and so unexpected in so many different ways that it's just like, you can't, when you think that okay, now I've got 2020 nailed down, I get it, something else happens. You're getting, hurricanes, like they're one behind the other now. We're already in what, at least, on this side of things, we're already up to N, and it's not even mid-September yet for named storms. That is unprecedented. So I think that because the times are so utterly unbelievable, the things that, in 2012, 2013, people were talking about socialism. 2016, they got a little louder. 2020, people are like, look, I mean, they are, what I'm hearing socialism in places that I have never heard it before. I'm hearing Green New Deal. I'm hearing Medicare for all. I'm hearing defund the police. Just a few years ago, people, these were ideas, but it wasn't I'm going to push for this. Now they are demands. And so I think that our message as Green Party folks and socialist folks, the message that we're bringing is exactly the message people are demanding. We are the only party that is talking about, not only these policies, but we are also the only party talking about doing all that we can to reverse climate change now, and beginning that now, not kicking the can down the road 30, 40, 50 years, because we don't have 30, 40, 50 years. We need to do this now. And there's a major sense of urgency behind this. We are the only party that's bringing that. We're also the only party talking about nuclear de-escalation and nuclear disarmament, so that we're not living with this threat hanging over our heads, in the midst of all these other things. And so I think that our message is absolutely perfect for this time. I mean, it's perfect for any time. And I'm not saying that because I'm biased. I'm saying it because it just makes sense.
Now you're from Wisconsin. I would be hard pressed not to note that in the news just in this week that Wisconsin has been quite prominent, sadly. How has you being a black played in this mix in your presentation of the facts? Because, I mean, a lot of the things you talk about socialism, the word socialism might scare some people, but to me, it's being more socially responsible to the people so that the system is more fairly distributed of the wealth created, and people really have an opportunity to not feel like they're just going to be left somewhere, the survival of the fittest, and let everyone go. So that's how I perceive it. And being black, and now, we're still trying to discover in every situation what it means. As I just got off a webinar about dismantling racism. It's a bunch of white folk trying to get to understand that we've been racists, even those of us that haven't thought of us as, have to understand this whole thing. And with you and running in your party, I always wonder, because now at this juncture, as I want to say as a representative for black people and people of color and people that are, I guess, repressed in many ways, but are there any kind of laws or things that you've looked at to help bring up the rights in a way that somehow, I mean, I keep wondering what it would be like to be running like you are and to be faced with this issue, because a lot of us think all people are important, yet it's very clear that black people have been repressed in such a way that, I mean, when someone told me the GI Bill, I thought the GI Bill was good for everyone. But then how can you use the GI Bill if the housing communities won't accept and are redlining against black people? It's something I didn't even really realize. So what many of us white people thought were there need institutional changes. That's what I'm really getting at, I think. You know, the day-to-day, treating each other like human beings, that's going to take some inside soul work. But on an institutional basis, how to make this work is something I'm struggling to see what and how I can support, which is why I'm really thinking you might have some insight into that.
I think it begins with that soul work. And I'm thinking that it is soul work on a larger scale. And when I say that, what I'm saying is that one of the very things that we have got to get at, if we are going to change institutions in this country and how they function and who benefits from them and who does not, if we are genuinely interested in making things good for all people, we are going to have to do some soul work in this country and be honest about the fact that at this country's inception, it was founded on the genocide of indigenous people. It was sustained and financed by the enslavement of Africans. We have to be honest about that. This country is a house built on bodies, and you can't have this as a foundation and expect that anything that grows out of it is going to flourish. It's not, and we're seeing it. You know, the things that the United States has been responsible for around the world, you know, as far as imperialism, colonialism, going into other countries and taking their resources and you know, undermining their elections so that you have people in power that will cooperate with your theft. It's not acceptable. We have to be honest about this country's history and this country's legacy. And going from that, then we can start talking about an individual level, because the system in this country is set up so that you have certain people who will never be looked at as people. We have a caste system in this country. And being a Black woman, you know, I can honestly say a child, a little kid, well, not a little kid, but, you know, they're about 9 or 10, and they asked one of the most profound questions I've ever had in an interview with Don. Do you feel that with the individual currently occupying the White House, do you feel differently? Do you feel more oppressed with this person because things are coming out? Or does it matter to you? And I had to tell them, no matter who's been in the White House, I have always been acutely aware that this is not a country that sees me as a citizen. I am aware of that. I'm aware of it every day of my life. I am aware. I have 5 grandchildren. I am aware that this is a country that does not see our babies as babies. They don't. And with Wisconsin in particular, the Annie Casey Foundation years ago found that Wisconsin is one of the worst states in the country for Black children. We could have told them that. Yes, the book Evicted, set in Wisconsin. We have been at the epicenter of showing what deindustrialization and institutional racism, where they meet, you got the fallout in our communities. That's where I'm from. And so what I'm hoping is that people are ready to have these dialogues now.
By deindustrialization, you mean, for example, when manufacturing centers suddenly went out of country and all these different things, that what's left then is a shell where they were being used before to do something, and now they're being unused, and what's left leaves a void.
Hmm.
that doesn't leave for growth and development equal to other areas. That's what you're saying, I think.
That's exactly what I'm
And
saying. I
what,
have the mental picture of those shells in my head because that's exactly what it is.
yeah. So what can we do? I mean, here I am. We're in Hawaii, but what can we do? Is that's what I'm hoping to see, or we're bringing up that discussion, that institutions and governments. To me, a government is good when they do what I want them to do. I don't want them to tell me what to do. I want us to come up with a good answer and something that they say, hey, that's a good thing. Here's how we can help you do it better. So that's what this is. This is us coming up with, we want to be more fair to all people and give opportunity to different groups, like you were talking. How can we do that? That's how maybe we all, us white people, black, all people, can help by being a vocal presence and getting our representatives to do something with these laws. I mean, I don't know, I don't really know how the laws are written that can take race out of it. When I heard that the place that I grew up in, Levittown, New York, was that the developers didn't allow certain races and things that I had no idea. I grew up where my father was a manager of a WT Grant company, like a Walmart or what,
Hmm.
in Harlem at 125th Street in Harlem. So when I grew up, I didn't really think about race until suddenly I was in a school. There were only two blacks. One was Arthur Prysock, the singer's daughter, and some other guy that transferred in. And my high school yearbook, my quote in the high school yearbook was, "Don't discriminate. Goodness comes in many colors." And yet I was in a white school. I didn't really think about race, but I must have been thinking about it enough at that time, having I didn't understand. There was like a different way people were being treated, but I didn't really know what to do to change it. Those kids in the schools, we can talk about what their parents did, but somewhere, some rules had to kind of force the path into the change. And that's what I'm really stretching for. Because I think about you and Green Party, and I think about standing up for people and the four pillars and the whole things about being green and how it's important. I don't know how race is dealt with, or it's just one of those things to me that I think more people right now than ever in history would like to be part of making this change happen. And their demonstration, if coupled with doctrines or maybe support in the kind of legislation that could help our country bring it up a level. I mean, I wonder if I was in England or someone in Canada that I know that's black who married a white woman and he's doing music. He said, I was right across the border. It was very different there. So, what is the difference? Was that legislated difference just across the border at Niagara Falls? Is there something we can do as a country to kind of get some of that racism out of the law?
We have to rewrite
Sorry
them.
if I'm being over. Pardon me?
We have to rewrite those laws. We have to take
Yeah,
another look at the
that's what I'm looking
Constitution.
for.
We have to
Well, I'm
also
just
look at
trying
the
to think.
go into the Constitution, and there needs to be some tweaking done. I mean, there's a
No,
whole
that's
lot
a
of
great
folks.
idea. All men and women of different colors and races, everyone are created. In other words, and that rights for all people and identifying it in the basic truths. Yeah.
But also, how
You
many
think the young
people
people?
know that there is a loophole in the 13th Amendment that, nominally ended slavery in the United States unless you are incarcerated? If you are incarcerated, you can be used as slave labor, which is something that is happening right now with people who are incarcerated. And it created the perfect uh, growing ground for the system of mass incarceration as we understand it now, and who is the most disproportionately affected by that, as it was, back in the days of enslavement, Black people. So I mean, we are going to have to go to the bedrock of the laws in this country, go through the Constitution, go through the institutions that have been set up in this country, and they are all going to have to be revamped. That's just the way it is.
Well, I hope that we can do that. I mean, I wonder if there was this point where I thought, well, if all us old people die off, maybe the young people with their vision. But I see that the young people are still not voting, still not participating, still listen to what mom and dad, all that stuff they grew up believing and hearing. It's I don't. I feel funny about that stuff. I keep thinking people on their own free will do this because they see the wisdom. Yet sometimes things have to be legislated to give them the path toward that wisdom. A funny balance. I'm sorry if I've been dominating this early thing with conversation and talking about this race issue, because there's lots of issues. I mean, we could start almost where. What other issues are big on your hit parade that we really need to address?
Race is pivotal. It absolutely is pivotal because in the United States, it connects to basically every other issue. And a lot of people, the fact that, like what you were saying about your school earlier, the fact that you don't have to think about it, that you don't have to be aware of that, is how privilege works. Because those of us who don't have that as our privilege are extremely aware of it, even when we don't want to be. Even when we would like to just be able to move through this country as human beings, we are aware that it does not work that way for us. We are not just human beings here, if we're thought of as human at all. So race is
How about the healthcare
definitely one of
system?
those things that's embedded in it.
Yeah.
Talking about Medicare for All as a community-controlled national health service, and it links to so many things in our platform that are around community control, that the entities that serve communities the closest should be something that folks in those communities have direct control of, have elected health boards, have salaried staff, so they're not like we have under capitalism. You've got folks having to run up billable hours and not able to spend quality time with patients and not able to get to know them and stay with them, because under the system that we currently have, it's about profit, and it's forcing healthcare practitioners to maybe not treat in the way that they would most like to. And so when under Medicare for All as a community-controlled national health service with us, you're taking the profit motive out of that. They're salaried. They have time to spend time with the people that they're seeing and taking care of. You're not rushing people through. Quality of care that people are receiving goes up. And then, of course, there's also the piece that, the people who are administrating these things are directly accountable to the people who are receiving those services. You're not talking to some insurance person who's removed from this. They are directly responsible to you.
I wonder sometimes, in wanting services for all and the idea that we have to pay for them somehow, we run into this muck of we don't have enough. What if there's more month at the end of the money, if you will? Things by costs have gotten so skyrocketing. How do we make a system? We now need more education to create more practitioners to be able to serve more people, to be able to slow down. Because you can go to a practitioner as a poor person and be waiting for a couple of hours to see a practitioner who's in there, and he does whatever billing, but he sees you 8 minutes. You're trying to tell him something, and he's in and out. You didn't know he's not coming back in again. He's already to the next patient, like you're saying. But how do we deal with that? Maybe a system
Socializing.
that uses. Well, that word needs to be what do I think? I don't know if the word destigmatized. When there are people that are of Republican nature, when they hear the word socialism, they go, socialism, It's like, how do we? I guess that's what I do in the neutral zone here. We take things that seem like they're difficult, but they're not difficult. They need to be explained in a more comfortable way. It means that people are being served, that everyone is getting more value out of our system. How do we do that without enough money? How do we do that?
We have enough
I'm,
money. We have more than enough money. This country has more than enough money to do what it needs to do. It chooses not to. At the beginning of this pandemic, when the government could have stepped in had it followed the lead of a whole lot of smaller countries who had less resources and handled the pandemic in a much more responsible and intelligent way. Had it done that, it would have that 3 trillion that just materialized out of the air when it needed to bail out Wall Street yet again. That money would have been put to paying landlords so that they would not have had to lean on their tenants, and also while also imposing a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, but making sure that those landlords were able to keep financially afloat. So you don't have, this kicking the can down the road with the eviction moratoriums, where now all of a sudden folks a lot of whom are now unemployed because of the pandemic, now you've got this big looming amount over your head. It's either pay this giant amount or be evicted. That's not how that was supposed to work. And in the middle of all of that, making sure that people were getting some sort of financial payment so that they could shelter in place and not be worried about being able to buy food or, have the things that they needed. People were not protesting because they weren't able to work. They weren't protesting the quarantining because of that. They may have thought that's what it was. Underlying that wasn't what it was. What they were angry about is the fact that this government fell on its face and did not provide them the financial support that they needed, so that while you're sheltering in place and observing the guidelines that you've been given, you're able to do that without the stress of, can I feed my family? Am I going to be evicted? Are my lights going to be turned off? What's going to happen with my car? Things like that. You would have been getting a monthly amount for your family to stay afloat, which is what other countries did and made sure that their people were taken care of. That didn't happen here. So there's a whole lot of things that could have happened. And for one of the things that did happen, though, is the fact that we are no longer in a position in this country to ask, how are we going to fund it? They showed us how we're going to fund it. Y'all made, when they had a will, when there is political will, then all of a sudden there's money. There's no money when there's no political will. When you want to heal people who are poor or make sure that everyone is housed, you can never find the money for that. But let Wall Street be in trouble. It just shows up out of nowhere. That's garbage.
That's a really good point, and I think that it needs to be really hammered true that we can create it. The whole system is based when we lost our gold standard way back in 1972. Now they're just printing it as needed. The fact that they can't print it as needed for things that are needed is so completely out of line, and it's blatant. Well, I'm glad to hear these things are in discussion. Have you had any opportunity to be in dialogue or debate, you and Howie, with any of the Democrats or Republicans? Has any of that happened at all?
No, the duopoly makes sure that third and fourth parties are shut out of access to those debates. And so,
So none of those, you're getting no access to those.
no, of course
Okay.
not. I mean, I would you if you were a member of the duopoly and you knew that your policies were not what people were asking for, and you knew that this competitor on the left was offering folks exactly what they wanted and has a budget to fund it, because we do, would you want to be on the debate stage with them? No. So
Well,
they
I mean,
team up
but
and make sure no
when
one hears about us.
when Jill Stein was running the last time, she at least had an opportunity to participate in different forums, but you're not seeing that at all now. Then that's what I was asking.
No, we get on
Okay.
like,
So,
you know, discussions and things like that. But as far as like the big debate that everyone's like going to be watching, those debates, no. They're, and it isn't because we haven't tried. The folks, back when the League of Women Voters was running it, we would have had a chance for that. But that's not who's over, who's in charge of it now. And the organization gatekeeps for both the Democrats and the Republicans. So I mean, that's the nature of the beast.
how can we help? Anything we can do? I mean, we're going to show this up obviously on the net, and I hope to have you both, Howie, and again as we're moving along for you to use in some other way. This one was really a get to know you time. I wanted you to kind of get. I'm a little bit unorthodox in that I'm not scripted. I don't have any agenda, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always looking to find a way to take what seem like things that don't fit together and allow them to fit together. Be that neutral zone where we can kind of discuss things and not carry a sword, and see if that we can do something in this arena of what if we all want to do things just and we care about each other and what we can do that's good for everyone. And that's how I got attracted to the Green Party. I saw its precepts and concepts and then felt like it was a step outside that line. We call it a duopoly for sure. Um, what other issues? I mean, you guys are obviously have issues that you're bringing up. Any other important issues that you'd like to put in the national conversation that isn't there right now?
Climate change, nuclear de-escalation and disarmament. We don't
Okay.
have we don't have time for folks to sit around and twiddle their thumbs like, what baby steps can we make? Maybe we should discontinue the use of fossil fuels and move over to something more green. Possibly we need to discuss it. No, we don't have time to discuss it. I mean, this is a march towards extinction, and I think we need to take it a little seriously. And so the fact that the Green Party is the only party that is seriously talking about this and relentlessly talking about this, I think it's an embarrassment for the other two parties, and the two parties that actually have the stage, actually have the power to make changes here and make timely changes, and are choosing not to because they can't make, they're not in a position to anger their corporate donors, many of whom are fossil fuels and, involved in nefarious, ecologically damaging things around the world. I mean, you if you're taking money from them, you can't speak against them. And so the Green Party, I think, is the only party. In fact, I don't think I know, because we don't take that kind of money and we don't have those kind of donors. We're the only party that is basically unfettered in being able to speak about climate change. And the fact that we don't have time to think about, how we're going to do this. We have a blueprint and it is time to move on it right now. There is all the urgency in the world about this.
I am totally with you. We here in Maui, the idea of self-sustainability on an island that is we're the most remote landmass in the world, Hawaii, and yet they haven't focused on self-sustainability. I've been talking about it for 30 years. It's just amazing to me, but now it's just in our face. We're, like you say, we don't have time now. Now, I'm hoping that the young people will be getting to vote and standing up, and that our whole thrust on education toward this sustainable green agenda will, I want to say, change our world, evolve our world, let's call it.
Agreed.
I'm very, very happy to have a person like yourself involved. I'm sure that before you got involved in politics, you were passionate about different issues. What made you get involved like this? What suddenly brought you to be the spokesperson? Where did that come from?
I got drafted. But a lot of the time also, I mean, there's a natural progression that happens if you've been an activist and an organizer. If you are given a platform, and for me, that first platform was being the legislative director for the transit union local that is where I'm from. And using that platform, because now you have access to people who make laws, being able to make sure that the people who are not in those spaces physically are in those spaces, because you know what they're asking for, and you have a platform to speak out to people who have an opportunity to make a difference in a way that will benefit those people. If you have that kind of a platform and that kind of access, for me, it is your duty to make sure that the people who are not able to be in that room with you physically are in that room with you, because you know what they've asked for and you are able to amplify it, and it is your job to do it.
As a director, you were talking about being transit in your role there.
Mm-hmm.
Did blackness ever come up as an issue? It sounds like you were unfettered in being able to express yourself, and you had a solidarity with your drivers, right? I'm guessing. Is that
Race
what it
is
is?
always there. Race is one of those
I
things
was
that
wondering.
is always in the room. It is always in the room. Race is the thing that, my position was not an elected position. I was appointed directly by the president of the union, the president of the local.
Nice.
And people would talk over my head. I'd be literally standing right next to my president. And what they were talking about is something they would have needed to be talking to me about. But because I am who I am to them, I wasn't there until my president would be like, so you've met our legislative director. These are the things you need to be talking to her about. And you could see it on their faces like, oh, I love it when people don't expect me to be what I am. I love that. They never see you coming. And so I would, for me, my race, my gender, my ethnicity, my status as a working class person, all of those things inform the way that I politic. The fact that I'm queer, all of those things impact the way that I move through the world. And I don't leave pieces of myself behind to make other people comfortable so that I can do this work. I bring all of myself with it. And all of those facets of myself inform the way that I stand up for the things that I stand up for, because many of these communities I represent, the working class and poor folks are not represented in this government. You don't have people who are, there's a whole lot. And that was one of my problems with former President Obama, is always, well, we're doing this for the middle class. I don't give a crap about the middle class. I'm not here for that. Who's talking for working class and poor people? It's not okay to step on us or erase us because you want to advance some other people, or you're pandering to another class of people. We're here. And there's a whole lot of us. And we vote and we do all kinds of other things. And so all of those things that I am bring themselves to I bring them to my work. I don't leave any part of myself behind.
I feel it, and I like it. As they say, bring it. Um, I don't know if this is this typical of the interviews you have? I'm always wondering when you have interviews, are people looking for certain kinds of answers? Are there any kind of things that I might not be addressing that you feel I need to be?
Mm-mm. When people have unstructured interviews with unstructured interviews, which are actually a lot of the time the ones that I prefer, because it tells me where other folks are, where their thinking is too, and what they're interested in. Um, I don't. I let it go where it goes.
Is there anything that and I'm just wondering if there's anything like that you would like to make sure our viewers know? The viewers here are mostly from Hawaii, and I'm sure they're happy to see that we're showing someone other than the big duopoly, if we call it, because we see lots of that. But I try to bring it up close and personal to, you know, whether I knew, whether you agreed with me on an issue or not, the fact that you listen and you're open to listen and you're going like this rather than coming in with an agenda from somewhere else I don't know is huge to me. To me, that's the kind of person that I would like to be sitting in a seat. What, like I say, whether or not someone agrees with you, if they can be comfortable in speaking with you and we become an interactive thing, that's where we're going to make progress. And I'm very happy to see that in you. Um,
I believe in
really
dialogue
been a pleasure.
and finding out where people are. And I don't expect people to agree with everything we stand for or everything we say. That would be unrealistic. That's silly. But what I do hope for is that people will be open minded, be interested in reading up on the platform. And even if they choose not to support it, just be aware of it. Be aware that it's there. Be aware that there is a party and there are candidates who are specifically fighting for eco-socialism, because basically that's what this is. We want a better world, not just for human life, but for this planet and her non-human life. Those things are essential. And we believe that capitalist exploitation is the downfall of both, is causing the harm that is heating up our planet and exploiting her resources and also exploiting human life. And we deserve better than that. This planet deserves better than that. She's magnificent. And we need to love on her properly. And this is not how we're doing it. And so, it's an honor for me to be able to be an unapologetic advocate for this planet.
Thank you. And it's an honor for me to have you here with me. I hope that you know you have an open forum here, and if you'd like to come back in any way, anytime, you are most welcome. Angela Walker, you've been a terrific guest. I'm very happy. Candidate, vice presidential candidate, Green Party for Vice President of the United States. Really very nice to meet you. I look forward to meeting you in person and see where the future brings.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate you taking your time with me tonight.
It's been a pleasure. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you again. And check out Angela Walker and the Green Party and Howie Hawkins, because what they have to say is something that you'll want to know and carry with you, no matter where you're thinking about in the future. Really important. Thank you, Angela. And thank you guys for all joining us.
Thank you.
Blessings to everyone. Aloha.